Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only, Mr. Nathan Evans. He is, of course, managing editor over at Popzara.com. If you haven't heard about them, highly encourage you to go over and check out their website. Lots of current events, news, and reviews. I think that is truly their strong suit. Nathan's put together an amazing team of reviewers, everything from movies, books, comics, video games, all that and more. We highly encourage you to check that out. Now, with that being said, computeramerica.com. If you, for some reason, can't remember Popzara, then hey, Computer America, right there. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. And of course, while you're there, check out the social media links, our own reviews, our own articles, and of course, hey, you can also find the podcast. If you can't catch us live on IRN, then you can, of course, catch us on the podcast, the second best place to do so. Okay, now trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to bring up, but no, I think that we are pretty good to go. I hope everyone out there is having an amazing Friday. You're staying cool in the places that are super hot, and you are staying dry in the places that are rainy. Weather, always fun. Everyone, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. And as I said before, longtime Computer America correspondent. Maybe you've heard Popzara because, hey, they help us cover so many events through over the years. And yeah, we always love talking to Nathan on the show every last Friday of the month. So, Nathan, welcome back onto Computer America. How you doing?
Yo, Ben, what's going on? And yeah, you are right. It is hot out. Hot and sticky.
Yeah.
Don't care where you're at.
Yeah, it's something about the way, and I have a friend that's helping her parents out over in Texas, and it's like the other day it was like 109 degrees and it felt like 117 or something. And it was like, why? Just scrap the entire state of Texas. It's a failed venture. It's not going to work at this point. Why live in Texas? That place is so hot.
Yesterday I went for a walk and it was really hot out, but the humidity level was low. It was 100 degrees, and with the heat index, it was 109. So like a fool, I decided to go outside. And I got about 40 minutes on my walk when I gave up and I had to call a friend to tap me out. So, but yeah, if you're going to go outside, here's a PSA from your friend. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Carry water, but don't just carry water, though. Carry something with electrolytes, like Gatorade or something, because you're going to need it. Because here's your PSA. Here's going to save your life. People can dehydrate drinking water. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Because you're not replenishing like all the fluids and the chemicals you're losing. So make sure if you're going to be out in this nasty heat, which you shouldn't be, carry something other than just water. Please, don't die.
Yeah, that's the whole story behind Gatorade, which is always a fun story to kind of look into. But yeah, there's a reason why professional athletes, well, other than advertising at this point,
that and a check.
And of course, kind of drinking a sugary drink. But Gatorade and its original form was simply about those electrolytes.
I saw LeBron James was advertising Mountain Dew as some sort of athletic drink, and I'm like, no, and he never drinks the drink in the ad either. I'll give him credit, but it's like if you're a professional athlete, and that's like, you might as well advertise cigarettes when you do things like McDonald's or power drinks. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of. I will say, soda drinks, all that kind of thing, they do have an effect, and of course, that much sugar, pure sugar, all that kind of thing.
They're bad for you. They're really bad.
Yeah, while I'm not a dietitian, it's just I've been on a health kick lately, and this is let's turn this more personal. And cutting out sugary drinks was of course a big one, and the other one was hyper processed foods. And yeah, I feel like that whenever I read the ingredients label on like a Monster energy drink, I'm like, this can't be English, and it can't be. Processed foods.
You're on a health kick. You're on a health kick. Okay, can I give you one more thing? Because you've met me. I'm not.
Please do.
It's kind of
and for everyone on the show who hasn't seen Nathan Evans, because we have the video and he never comes on video. He is exquisitely normal. He is a normal, regular guy, and I want to emphasize that.
Well, thank you. But here's the thing, though, from a health professional, when you go from a lethargic, bad diet to a nice, healthy diet. Like every movie and TV show you've seen that says, "Oh, I feel so much better," it's a lie. You don't feel better at first; you feel worse because your body is depleting itself of all those carbs and sugar and fat, and you're going to have a come down like any drug. And you got to get past that. And so if you're taking the journey, you have my full support. Just remember, though, just stay on it. Just don't give up because you look. Electrolytes, plants crave it. But so do people. So let's go.
Yeah, Brondo, it has what plants crave. Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah. So, but of course, speaking of today's topic, so we're gonna have kind of things showing here in the background. But Nathan, I thought it'd be fun to just kind of jump right into it because it's been a long month. There's been a lot of topics and a lot of things happening, and so many different places we could start. I think we could start with probably one of the softball easy ones.
Real quick, right there. Look at your site right there. Okay, you missed it. There were 2 stories about Nicolas Cage on my website. Like it'll cycle through it. Like if you go up to the top, and it's but they're both about the movie Pig. You see this? Look at that, Pig. My editors, this is their favorite movie of the year.
Pig.
Multiple editors have all said Pig is their favorite movie of the year, and I read about it. Haven't seen it yet, but I'll say this: everybody who's seen this movie loves this movie. Everybody, like this might be the movie of the year. I'm not joking.
Is this Nicolas Cage come on to a health kick and dropping the bad food? Like
this is Nicolas Cage not caring what he looks like. But
is it a redemption story? Is it like tease the audience? Because I personally have not heard about this.
Haven't seen it, but the commercials made it look like it was a wanted movie. Like where's my truffle pig? Like Nicolas Cage goes crazy. Apparently, it's not that at all. Apparently, it is just Nicolas Cage. It's a meditative movie about reflection and acceptance, where he plays a man who left the culinary scene in Portland just to hunt truffles with his beloved pig. He gets robbed. His pig gets stolen. So now he's got to explore the culinary world of Portland again, where he was a celebrity to find his pig. And I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not going to comment. But every single person that I've talked to that have seen this movie have all said it's probably the best movie of the year.
Yeah, lately I've been really getting into those, those introspective, kind of zany, weird premises. There's one on Netflix. I'm sure it's been around for a while, and honestly, they just sound like, and I'm sure that they are just NPR interviews set to weird cartoons. But it's the Midnight Gospel. I don't know if you saw that one on Netflix, and it's essentially like an hour-long NPR interview, and they get into some, and I think that they chose very, very good topics to discuss, and they set it to like really crazy, like think Adult Swim at its peak animation, and they kind of put the two together, and it's kind of like a loose storyline. Very fun to watch. Very, very fun to watch. So
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. And again, just introspective stuff can, when done properly, makes you think, makes you kind of, get lost in the story. And so Pig, that is streaming. I assume nothing is coming out in theaters anymore.
No, that's the thing. That's the problem. It's not streaming. It's theater only. And so this is the type of movie that could have benefited from being a streaming film. But no, you can watch Black Widow at home, but you can't watch Pig. So there you
we
go.
can, and I was going to softball you with Windows 11, but because, hey, we're talking movies, we can just jump right into Black Widow. So for those who don't know, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, obviously one of the biggest actresses of our generation, is suing the largest entertainment company in the industry for the release strategy that is... for the release strategy that happened with her movie Black Widow. And Black Widow was supposed to be like, her chance because, she's always been part of the Marvel character universe and she's played, a fairly main role in those movies. But this was her movie, her chance to shine. COVID, pushback, like so many other movies. It finally was released. And yeah, Nathan, does this come down to words in her contract, or did Disney really kind of leverage Scarlett Johansson to improve Disney Plus?
Both, actually. They're both right. Disney, everything you said is correct. Everything Scarlett Johansson is alleging is correct. Everything Disney's alleging is correct. There's no villains in this story. It's a pandemic, and Scarlett Johansson had a very lucrative deal going on. And let's be fair here. For those who don't know, the movie did not do great theatrically, did okay. Scarlett Johansson, like most people, Stars That Command It, was set to make a big, tidy profit based on box office receipts. And I don't know her contract. I don't know how she wrote this in. But it's pretty assumed that she would have had some sort of Disney Plus or streaming ancillary thing. I don't know the contract. I assume it was in there somewhere. But again, Marvel movies make upwards of $300 million per film. She got paid, I think, $30 million up front, plus a back end. So, she's not poor here. Right. The problem, though, and you saw this with Warner Brothers when they announced their dual strategy, is that the directors didn't like it. They talked bad about it. Nobody liked what was happening. But you have to remember, though, and I'm not 100% like conspiracy guy. We were in a pandemic, though. Things changed. With all due respect to Scarlett, with all due respect to Christopher Nolan from Tenet, you're not a priority. Like on the high list of things that people should be worried about, going to the theater is not one of them.
Well, and it definitely does seem like an argument that is resurfacing every single year. Like last year, I remember it being with Steven Spielberg and that that committee for what was it, the Emmys or whatever it was or the Oscars or whatever for movies, and they were like no streaming movies, streaming stuff doesn't count, and it seems like the same thing again. We're like the old guard, and Scarlett Johansson, I'm sure, wanted the royal Marvel treatment of 90 days in a theater, no streaming, and then make to maximize box office revenue, and then release to streaming. But she didn't get that, and so the lawyers are kind of peeved at that. So you're right. She did make millions off of this, but her lawyers are kind of thinking that even in a pandemic, she was due millions more, but that didn't happen.
Here's the thing, though. She's completely right, but she's completely selfish. This is the problem. You could be right and selfish. Basically what she's saying is this movie should have only been in theaters, and the only way fans should have been able to see this, the only option they had was to put on masks and go in theaters. And they should not have had the option of watching it at home where they're comfortable. That's what she's saying. Because if only they were brave enough to go into theaters, she could have made more money. Mm-hmm. That's the lawsuit. And she's totally right. It's deplorable, but she's right. But in Hollywood, though, you have to understand, women who get aggressive when it comes to their contract negotiations are considered, witchy a little bit. Let's just say that. Yeah. And to your credit, she is a major actress. And here's the thing about Scarlett. She's a great actress. She's not just a person. She's not Brie Larson. Mm-hmm. Okay, she's not Brie Larson where she's unlikable. She's a likable actress, and she's pretty good. And her character's been all up and down, inside out of this franchise. And this movie should have come out 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. It came out way too late. But the fact of the matter, it came out. It's not a bad movie. Like, you've heard some bad reviews. It's not. It's a movie that feels. Here's the thing. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. No.
Okay, I've kind of given up on Marvel. Like, I haven't watched any of the Marvel
You're
shows.
Exhausted. You have Marvel exhaustion.
I don't have time to keep up with fake things anymore. And I'll tell you this. Here's the problem, though. you feel the Marvel limitations on this movie. Like the director's first time directing a big thing like this, you feel like this could have been a more interesting movie if it didn't have the Marvel limitations. Like, and it makes me wonder what we're going to be going in for, where every movie has these invisible lines and invisible things you can't cross. Like you can't have blood on action scenes.
Yeah.
You know, you have characters being bashed around. Like this is a character that, spoiler, dies in Endgame by falling, right?
Yeah.
She falls 10 times worse in this movie. Falls everywhere, but she's made of rubber, apparently. She doesn't get hurt. Like, at a certain point, it's too much. Like,
yeah.
I've seen this a million times before. The formula's kind of over. It's still funny. Like, David Harbour's funny. Florence Pugh, who's really good. I like her a lot. And Scarlett's great in this movie. Everybody's good in this film. Like, it's not bad. It's the problem, though, is that I wonder, even if this movie had only been theatrical, how well it would have done. And we'll never know. Because the argument was always, oh, people don't want to see female-led superheroes, which is total BS.
Yeah.
But Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman 1984 also went streaming and theatrical last December. Movie did okay, but the movie wasn't any good. And so it suffered. This is a better movie than Wonder Woman 1984.
Right.
It's a much better movie, and I recommend if you're a Marvel fan, watch it. But watch it how you feel comfortable.
Definitely. And really, I think that when this is released on Disney Plus, like this was like the $30 purchase, right? Like it wasn't just on there. You had to purchase it for $30. And that's still a business model in itself that, you know, some people aren't very happy with, that you pay a monthly service for, you know, being on there. Yeah. And then you get essentially secondary purchase things within the streaming service.
That's one thing, though, that we don't know is like, how much did she get of that $30? There's a reason why there's a $30 bump. Like,
right.
You know, whereas like Disney Pixar's Luca, which was released just a couple of weeks ago, didn't have a $30 fee. So I am going to assume that
Disney,
$30 bump is to pay for salaries.
Disney estimated $60 million in revenue for Disney Plus, and I don't know if that means that, you know, new signups plus 30, or if that's just, you know, what does that make? Like 2 million people purchase it from home? Here's
the thing, though. They conflated worldwide tallies with American tallies, and that's the problem. Is that you can't do that because if you do that, then all of a sudden every box office tally has to be taken into account. I think the movie opened at 30-something million American. I forget what it did. But then they said,
80 million domestic, 78 million international was the opening weekend,
which is pretty good. Which is really good,
very
for a
respectable.
Film.
Yeah,
but it dropped to nothing in the next week, and that's what I think the problem was. Is that and there's something else. Forget Disney Plus. The movie's bootlegged. Let's just be honest.
That's what I was about to say. Do you think that the at-home release helps with bootlegging and people pirating the movie?
Absolutely, but again, though, there's this argument that bootlegs destroy films. But if you traditionally look at the movies that are the most bootlegged, they're the movies that make the most money. So it's like the idea that every single person who was going to bootleg would go out and pay for it is ridiculous. What they've done in most cases is the bootleg people are people who are interested in your film but either too lazy or too poor to go see it. They become advocates and they become sort of nodes to help advertise. And I think a lot of companies know this. I think secretly they know that the bootleggers actually help, but they're not willing to say it because they don't want to encourage it. But secretly, like, this movie made a lot of money on its first weekend. It dropped. There are reasons for it. But to be fair, every movie has dropped in theaters the way it is right now.
Yeah.
There's
not a movie that has broken the pandemic stranglehold over the movie industry, and like you said, Scarlett Johansson is not a bad person. Her legal team, not bad people. Disney, you know, they're not bad because they're obviously trying to adapt their entire business model to the pandemic. No, like you said, no one here is bad. It's just, but also from outsiders, it's a very non-sympathetic issue that, oh no, someone didn't make enough millions. That's so heart-wrenching.
There's one more thing I say about this.
Last one, then we'll move on.
I think everybody's right and everybody's wrong in this, but there was one last thing. And this is the part that nobody wants to really consider, and this is the really bad thing. Marvel fatigue. Keep in mind that there hasn't, like, this was the first big Marvel movie to hit in a year. However, there's been like 3 Marvel shows on Disney Plus. Like you have Loki, you have
I liked Loki. That was good.
But you have WandaVision.
WandaVision.
You have the Captain America, the Black Falcon, or Winter Soldier, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
But you have all these shows, right? And you don't have to pay an extra $30, and you're getting a larger story about smaller characters. And I think Disney may recognize, as they do with the Star Wars franchise, that the future of this franchise may have to be smaller. And because I'm just not sure, like, where are you going to go? What are the stakes? Like, this is a prequel,
right?
You know.
The next iteration, and you can tell where they're really setting it up, is this whole idea of multiverse, and they need to, and like what you say, getting smaller. I'm sure that you mean, like less releases and, kind of more finite characters and not this giant sprawling mess that no one can keep track of.
Well,
I just have to say that I think Disney's going the other direction with the multiverse, and they're being like, well, we can do some really crazy stuff, and we need to go over the top to get people back.
Well, I agree with you, but I also think that they're also coming up with the inevitability of charisma is that they don't have replacements for the actors, and this is a problem because you're not going to find an actor to replace Robert Downey Jr. Or even Scarlett Johansson right now. It's going to be difficult, and you know why? And this is the final thing: is that Loki was never meant to be a main character. He was never meant to be this. The actor made him a main character. Tom Hiddleston's performance. Hugh Jackman, X-Men. He was never supposed to be. Wolverine was never supposed to be a main character. It was the actor's performance. Robert Downey Jr. Like these were not written this way. It was the performance, and they have tried really hard to replicate that with some of their films. Fallen flat, really. It's going to be difficult to propagate a new phase of superheroes when nobody really cares about the superhero. Are you excited about the Immortals? You anxious about the Immortals?
I'm
no.
I need to know more about them because I feel like I know next to nothing about the characters. But I will say that the second, kind of like the second phase of Disney's plan here is going to be even harder because, before Marvel, as we all know, there wasn't really, superhero movies were kind of a joke. Now everything's going to be compared to, kind of like the golden age of Marvel. And yeah, that's going to be a hard barrier to overcome.
Or it's just going to reset to where we were before Marvel, which is Batman, as usual.
Batman and Superman, of course.
That's it. It might reset to that.
Yeah,
if you think about it, Batman. Yeah, but we'll see how it goes. Nobody knows.
Yep. So that's probably going to come out in streaming before long. So that's that story. Let's go ahead and jump on over to our next one. And let's just real quick, Windows 11, everything I've heard about it, everything I've seen about it, it's available in beta. And if you like Windows 10, you're probably going to like Windows 11. It's Windows 10 if you mixed it with Mac. That's what I've heard.
Here's the thing. I have Windows 11. I've been using Windows 11 for a month and a half now. I actually tempted to use Windows 11 for this show with you, but no. Here's the thing. I have Windows 11 on a very reliable, powerful laptop, so I've been playing with it, and I got to tell you something. What a journey, because it has gone from unusable to fluid very quickly. Yeah, they're fixing so many things, quality of life. But here's the thing: everyone says Mac, and I can see it, but I would actually say it reminds me more of Chromebook. Like the overall look of the taskbar, like if you were to put Windows 11 side by side with Chromebook, it would look more like Chromebook. It really doesn't look like Mac. It really doesn't. There's rounded edges.
People
on
are saying
things.
that it looks like Mac, obviously with kind of all the blue, but more to the point, the whole dock and the center and everything being centered instead of left or right, which is very Mac-esque.
No,
and just like Chromebook. Yeah.
Well, not only that though, there's a pull down thing. Like if you actually pull the thing down, it pulls down like Chromebook. Like it shows the app array just like Chromebook. Macs don't do that. And and another thing is their main browser is Edge, which is basically Chrome, which is basically Chromium. And then they have the compatibility with Google apps. They have certain Android apps. Clearly the DNA is more like that. Like if you go to the settings of Windows 11 settings, it looks like the settings in your Edge browser. Like the entire system settings doesn't look anything like Windows 10. It looks exactly like a web browser.
Right.
And this is the thing, man. This is the thing. Here's my view of Windows 11 so far. I like it, but there are people that are gonna hate it. And I think this will be the most divisive Windows since Windows Vista.
People are going to hate it because they want to hate it. People are going to hate it because they want to hate it. Not
necessarily.
Well, no. They're going to hate it for one big reason, and it's this this myth, this idea that Microsoft has good release, bad release, and it's been going back since like Windows 98, 95, 2000, whatever.
It's like Star Trek. It's like Star Trek movies. All the even ones are good. All the odd ones are bad.
Yeah, and everyone wants Windows 11 to be bad and Windows 11 to be bad because then you can stick to your narrative of, Windows 8 and 8.1 were bad, Windows 10 good, Windows 11 bad, Windows 12 good.
It could happen, but hear me out though. The reason they're going to hate it is for two reasons. One, they don't like change. Like, it's not exactly the way it was. So there's going to be those people that complain about change.
There are people who still complain about the Office ribbon. I don't even know.
I think they got rid of the ribbon. But here's the thing: they got rid of Clippy. So we can compromise.
They got him back. They got him back.
Here's the thing that people are going to complain about, and they're repeating the sins of Vista. Vista, when it came out, Microsoft was very clear about which hardware would or would not use it. Hardware had to be labeled made for Windows Vista, and the reason being is because now we know there were certain problems with the way Vista processed information, caused hard drives to overheat, overrun, all this stuff. Remember DirectX 9, DirectX 10?
Yeah.
And there was planned obsolescence built in out of the box. And Microsoft has done the exact same thing with Windows 11. They said if you have this hardware, it's not going to run it. There's going to be no exceptions. If you want the best gaming, you got to do this. So right out of the bag, they're conflating software with hardware. And that's a problem. Like, for example, if you don't have an RTX video card, you can't run RTX, supposedly. That's a hardware thing, right?
Yeah.
But, you're not going to get, 4K, 1440p, whatever, from a GPU system on a chip. It's not going to happen. But if you have a $2,000 video card, you can. So that's a hardware thing. But what Microsoft's saying is your Windows 10 machine, which runs Windows 10 perfectly fine, is not going to run this software upgrade. No, that's not true. They're doing this as a way to planned obsolescence. They're claiming, it's security. Well, what does that mean, Ben? What does that mean? Does that mean Windows 10 isn't secure? That's the message.
Well, and this is actually a topic that we've covered quite a bit here, and that has to do with, I'm sure, as you remember, I think it was like Afterburn and Ghost, whatever it is, the vulnerabilities found in in mostly every CPU Intel has made since like 2018. Everything before that had the same security flaw, that it was essentially putting things into kind of random access or memory, and it was a way to kind of trick the CPU to operate faster than it did. And the problem is that little partition that it was using to kind of store and read things from was not hidden behind the protections built into the CPU. So yeah, short of everyone buying a new CPU, that was an ingrained, I'm not going to restart Windows, how dare you, Windows.
It's getting close. Shut it down.
Exactly. But Intel, there was no way to actually fix those security issues without changing your hardware. And I think that's where Windows is drawing their line. They don't want people running those old Intel CPUs that are inherently not safe.
Well, but who's to decide? Like, what's the vulnerability? What's the vulnerability quotient of that? What's the possibility that your particular CPU that's running Windows 10 right now is going to be vulnerable to that? Like, you're vulnerable now.
The only vulnerability is if someone were to get their hands physically on your computer and they wanted to read some of the system files, and these vulnerabilities could lead the system to give up all of its hardware contents. They would have to get it to their get it in their hands, hook it up to the proper software that so far has only been demonstrated in laboratories and kind of security laboratories. Nathan, it's not really been seen in the wild because it's incredibly hard to reproduce, but it is known and people can do it given enough effort.
So and that is different than your Windows 10 how?
It's not. Windows 10 is inherently flawed.
That's
Windows,
what I'm saying. That's what
yes.
that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not different than it is now. And when you hear about the hacks that are happening, when you hear about hacks that are taking down power plants, that are shutting down Exchange servers, it's not because of this. It's because of idiots that are leaving laptops vulnerable.
It's because of idiots that leave the password as SolarWinds123.
That's what I'm saying, though. But that's what I'm saying. The major hacks that have been happening have nothing to do about chip security.
Right.
Nothing.
But it is known. It is known, and I think Microsoft would be remiss. Now, do I think that Microsoft is doing this so they don't have to support more hardware? Maybe, but they do have a valid point as well. So that's how I feel about that one.
To me, it's a synergistic compromise between OEMs, of which they found a way to introduce a type of obsolescence to get people to upgrade their systems. I mean, they do this every 10 years. This is nothing new. They're saying it's, like I said, what they're saying is, even though you have this vulnerability now, don't be scared now. Mm-hmm. However, be scared enough so you have to upgrade your system so the flaw that could affect you now won't affect you tomorrow. And they haven't made the case they haven't made the case that somehow this future possibility, quite possibly maybe thing that might affect you is somehow more dangerous than the crap that's actually affecting infrastructure right now. So that's the problem. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, though. From the layperson's perspective, let's go out and rebuy everything so we can fix a vulnerability that may possibly infect us. I mean, like I said, it's going to be a hard sell, and I think Microsoft is going to do a U-turn. You can already reverse engineer your systems. Microsoft has already relented on certain betas, so you can play Windows 11 on machines that aren't TPM. They've already compromised, and that's what I'm saying. I don't buy it. I think they're going to reverse it the same way they did DirectX 14 years ago. I think it's going to be the exact same.
I think because it made enough news, because it did make headlines when it said, Intel might recall, 10 years of processors that they made. They would be remiss if they started Windows 11 on a bad note that this operating system is inherently insecure or, not secure. I'm sure that its emotional state is very, very well, but yeah, it's not secure. And, they wanted to start off on the right foot because this might be the operating system of the next 5 years and they want to start off right. I also feel like, this may lead to a second fork of, people who don't want to upgrade to Windows 11, just like with 2000 or XP or whatever, they're going to have to carry both for quite a while. It's
almost like it mirrors the current vaccination divide in this country.
That's a topic I'm not looking to get into.
Well, but you see, that's what I'm saying, though. It's almost like there's something ingrained in us as people that we feel that we should be able to make the choice to be safe or not. You know what I mean? Whether it's vaccinations or TPM or roller coasters or anything else. There is something like, if you're a behavioral anthropologist, you could make bank studying this sort of binary and the way people think.
It definitely reminds me of situations like, let's say Toyota has a faulty airbag and one person died from it, but it's installed in 150,000 cars. Yeah, they have to recall 150,000. It doesn't the chances of it happening to you are very, very slim, but the chance is known. Well, and regulators say you have to recall them and change them. So same deal. Let me give
you one example about where I fall. See, there are 3 types of people in the world. Only 3. Well, 4 if you count the agnostics. 3. You have the optimist who says the glass is half full. You have the pessimist who says the glass is half empty. Mm-hmm. Then you have the realist who says, what's in the glass? And I'm the realist. And I'll tell you why. I don't look at anything blindly. I don't say, oh my God, there's a risk. There's a risk with everything. There's a risk if you go outside, you're going to get hit by a truck. So what I'm saying is, Peloton did a recall of some of their Peloton things, right?
Yeah, and they said, killed a baby because the baby crawled up underneath it and got crushed, and something like that.
The baby crawled underneath it. First of all, if you're a mom leaving your baby to crawl under a piece of machinery, you can't make things idiot-proof. That's like saying, my baby climbed up on my kitchen counter, jumped in the sink, with an electrical toaster. It could happen. But the possibility of these factors happening involve the user being stupid enough to actually make it happen. And that's what I'm saying.
Remember, Nathan,
I want to know.
every time you see a sticker or a warning sign and you say, who would be that stupid? That sticker or warning sign are there for a reason, because someone was that stupid. And as always, they're idiot proofing everything, but they're always making better idiots. So I honestly feel like if there is a simple change that they can make to make something better, safer, whatever, go for it. But also, as a realist, yes, that argument of we do not want to support old TPM chips that are inherently not secure. Yeah, as a realist, you could have 10 million systems out there. 0 of them will be compromised in this way. But why build a system on that? Yeah.
Hear me out. Apple does not have this problem because the Apple fans accept the obsolescence. Apple doesn't need to make a dog and pony show about, there might be a vulnerability. They just said, you know what? It's new. Get with the program. And Apple people go, yes, sir. And they fall in line with it. Apple says it's the best. And they don't have this problem. But Microsoft has billions of people. So I appreciate what they're trying to do. I do. But the idea of introducing standards like this is always going to be fraught with peril. Yeah. And what I'm saying is, my prediction is they will compromise on the TPM issue.
And I think that compromise won't be on that, but it will be a Windows 10 and a Windows 11 existing side by side until it's not even an issue anymore, which will happen in a number of years. So.
We both agree something will happen.
Yes.
But if I can give one example of what you said, to back up what you said, everybody makes fun of the lady with the coffee, the McDonald's coffee, contents are hot. If you read that story, it sounds like, this woman's so stupid, she put coffee in her lap. But if you actually read the story, you actually become sympathetic to the lady because the coffee really was really hot. They didn't really give you covers. And so you realize that, yes, sometimes these safety measures, sometimes the stupid labels and everything are because people don't always see. And so there are cases of sometimes coffee is hot and you need to know this. I get it. I mean, I'm not completely bad.
Right. And it's, Nathan, I don't want to say it, but, it's like when you start saying, baby shouldn't be so stupid. Yeah, I can see how people could kind of get on the other side of that.
Baby shouldn't be so stupid. Babies are going to baby. I'm talking, if you're
mothers are stupid. Yes, I hear you. Okay, now moving on.
So don't leave your baby next to a machinery.
There you go. Okay, now we have a ton of different articles here. So Windows 11, that will be coming out this fall. And again, if you can't upgrade to it,
Windows 11.
You like it.
I like it. I'm just saying I like it. I'm a fan.
Okay, perfect. So that's a good way to end that one. Looking at my other stories here, we can cover this one real quick because it's a very quick article. I'm not sure how much you had a chance to look at this one, but this popped up in my newsfeed yesterday, but our interview ran long, so we weren't able to do it.
Sugar daddies.
Google Sugar Daddy. Nathan, what's a sugar daddy?
Well, glad you asked. Basically, sugar daddy is just the reformation of the world's oldest profession. That you have the sexual dynamic between older rich man, younger women taking advantage of older rich man. It's like a strip club. Men know the women don't really love them. Men don't care because they get the friction. And
right.
So, I mean, and this is a larger subject we could talk forever about, but we don't want to titillate and excite all your listeners. We want them to finish listening to the show. But long story short, we live in a world where Twitch is banning women in bathtubs. We live in a world where
they didn't ban it. They gave them their own section, and it dropped precipitously. They banned them at first,
though, because they realize what everybody with a brain knows is that if you're going to start getting more and more normal women into this, they're going to eventually primordially devolve into their base instincts, which is, Madonna whore complex. The idea is
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This happens. This happens on everything. This happens whenever you leave the masses to this. You leave the man to his natural state in gaming, and you're going to start seeing bikinis and guns. You leave the women, you're going to start seeing domestication and sex work. This happens everywhere in every industry. Everything, even from VR to PCs to VHS tapes to everything.
So that was the conversation happening on Twitch, and I love seeing it because both sides really just did not seem to get it or really agree at any point. But it really came down to it's not really some were saying that's women being women and they can dress however they want and they can run their channels however they want, that whole thing. But really, it's women knowing that and what's that old saying, sex sells, like women just knowing what their audience is going to react to, and they were getting those reactions by hyper focusing on certain aspects of themselves. And if that means bikinis and hot tubs and pool heaters in their bedrooms, then hey, that was what their audience demanded, and they gave it to them. They were performers.
Like 6 years ago, before he got out of office, President Obama was interviewed by a woman in a bathtub, and then 6 years later, a woman in a bathtub was selling sexy time on Twitch. Like, this is not new. Like, here's the thing. When I hear bands like this is exactly what it was 20 years ago. This is a predominantly male industry feeling they need to protect women from sex work. And that's the problem. I mean, what do you want? You give them the internet, you give them an internet browser, they can have OnlyFans. You give them Twitch, you can't have that because we don't want to show how people actually use our product. Have you seen video game streamers, even the non-porn ones? The camera is always on boobs. There are no ugly female streamers. They're big, bosom, sexy time. And none of them are any good at the games. Let's be honest here.
I can't back up all this. This is all Nathan's ideas. No.
I'm being serious, and everybody knows this, though. Everybody knows this.
There are women who are legitimately entertaining, good personality, and good at video games, who also have a sizable audience. It is not just simply those who have sex appeal make it to the top of Twitch. I'm not saying that there aren't people who
You misunderstand.
ride that.
You misunderstand. Sex appeal changes for the audience. What someone may find sexy, someone may not. But the idea is, when you look at you can put on a billboard, you can put on a board right now, the top 20 gaming streamers that are women and the top 20 gaming streamers that are men, and they will break down the way everything else breaks down. The men will be relatively the same looking. They'll probably have a physiognomy. They'll have a body type. They'll have a dress type. The woman will almost invariably be dressed like cats. They'll have different color hair. The cleavages will be there. It will be much more image driven. Much more. And this is a fact. And this is how it breaks down on everything. We talked about Black Widow a minute ago. Even Black Widow, we talked about it. The first thing Scarlett Johansson said, they sexualized my character because they made me wear a skin-tight suit. Every single male character in the Marvel movies, every single one has their shirt off in every movie. Every one. It's the way these things break down. And the idea that we can't have a conversation as adults about why this is. So instead we say, let's ban it. Let's ban it because we don't want women taken advantage of by men. They never think, well, maybe it's the women taking advantage of the men.
So here and here at the buried in this article is more to the fact that Google's decision may be motivated by U.S. legislation that can make platforms liable for content that facilitates prostitution, because prostitution, whichever way you fall on that one, is still illegal in most areas of the United States. And,
Can I ask you a question? What's the difference between pornography and prostitution?
A camera.
Cameras. Commerce. That's what it is. It's like, I can pay you, not you, Ben. I mean, I like you, but no. I can. X person can pay Y person to have sex in a private room, and it can be between two ascending adults, be considered prostitution. X person can pay Y person to have sex in a room full of people to be filmed and distributed, and that's perfectly fine. Like, the laws have not been updated. I'm not advocating for sex work, but it is ridiculous that they have these draconian strangulations on industries they have incompatible redundancies within the law that don't make any sense. And ultimately it comes down to the idea that men take advantage of women, despite the fact that it's well known that women are huge entrepreneurs in this industry.
It might be more the fact that Google has a platform, and this can get into another thing that gets you hot under the collar, which is kind of tech companies having too much sway and all that kind of thing. Google does not want to facilitate, or they don't want to be seen as a platform where people can go for this kind of transaction. Google's not saying that this should or should not happen. They're just saying they don't want it on their platform, and if their platform is too big, that's a different conversation of does a single company have too much power in this industry? Yeah, probably. But they're saying not on their platform. That's the
why now though? That's the thing though. Like, why now? And usually it's because of, like you said, they're afraid of legislation. They're afraid of becoming liable for this sort of thing because they themselves see the intricacies of this. But when Tim Cook was asked about competition being on iOS, he would say, "Oh, but you have a universal app. You have Safari." right? That was his excuses. The Safari allows you to do anything you want, because there were questions whether, like, why you can't buy books on the Amazon app from,
Right.
he would say, well, just use Safari. That's his excuse, use Safari. And I assume Google would say, well, just use Safari. But then you're starting to see legislation when it comes to pay services like PayPal and Patreon and all this sort of thing. So eventually it's not just about this. It's that the laws become systemically like dominoes, where you start banning on a platform, then you start banning here, you start banning there. Look, here's my view, just so your audience is perfectly clear. I don't care about this particular field. I don't participate in sugar daddy stuff or anything like that. Honestly, it's a lot of fun to say, but and there are real victims in here. There are women who get coerced into this, and yes, the dynamic is usually men taking advantage of women. Sorry, ladies, but sorry, it's true. But the fact of the matter is, though, is that you can't have conflicting things that allow one type of content and not allow another type of content that could allow one person to be rich and another person to be penalized with a felony. Get together and fix these laws. Just find out the irregularities and fix the laws.
But you know as well as I do, Nathan, that it really comes down to whack-a-mole. What's the flavor of the month? I mean, hot tub streams, and I'm sure women being in pools and doing exercises while scantily clad on Twitch has always been a thing. It didn't really become a thing until people started to notice, and it made a lot of it was making headlines. It was the top of Reddit, stuff like that. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and I feel like
every one of your metaphors is a double entendre. Everyone. So
that's because you can change anything by saying that's what she said. And really, but back to the point, I do want to say one little blurb that Google did speak out, kind of about this, where they said, as a platform, we are always excited to support our developer partners, but we also work hard to provide a safe experience for our users. We have updated our inappropriate content policy to prohibit apps that facilitate sexual acts in exchange for compensation, following feedback we received from NGOs, governments, and other advocacy groups concerned with user safety. This aligns with our policy and industry norms. So that's their response. They are trying to, kind of crack down on, like you said, abuse. And you don't buy it so much, but that is Google's stance.
I find it hollow, and I find it disingenuous, because you're still going to see apps like Tinder and Grindr available on there. You're going to see apps that facilitate sex work right now and drug usage because they're not consistent in how they apply these things. Like, right. And you saw this happen last year, before the Capitol riots in Washington, and before President Trump was no longer President Trump. You have the inconsistent actuation of policies, and it creates this disruption where certain industries, certain companies are favored over others. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, man, but a blind man can see it. And this is a problem. This is a problem in the way they distribute this. Like, if you're a bigger player, if you have more clout, if you do this, then you will be accepted. And if you don't, then you won't. And that's a problem going forward. And look, I'm not against monopoly laws. I think Apple and Google should be able to do whatever they want, as long as it's administered consistently. But they're not. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and I'm sure longtime listeners of the show would not be surprised at your stance, and they wouldn't be surprised at my stance, saying that, hey, tech companies do need to be broken up. It's crazy.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. Like I said, though, if they violate civil rights, then yeah, after a certain point, goodbye. I do. Because, again, at the end of the day, though, believe it or not, I think you and I agree on this, the tech companies have such a sway of power right now. Like, a very small handful of people have such control over so much that they probably look at you and me and like the individual who's trying to open up a bake shop or something as collateral damage. Like, they don't understand the ripple effects. Like, just because Jack Dorsey or whatever his name is wants to shave his beard every day and do yamalamas and meditations, he can disrupt his life every single day without any repercussion. He can invest in goat herding and not worry about the repercussions. But when you and I build a business and we rely on these policies to be consistent in order to build that business, and they shake these things and it destroys your investment, that can destroy lives. That can destroy money. It can ruin people. And I'm sorry, but
what just takes me and last thing, and then we're going to move on to PlayStation. Sure. A very nice little segue. But the last thing that takes me off is just that whole congressional committee that was there to help legislate social media, and who was at the head of the table other than Mark Zuckerberg. I'm like, why is the one that you are supposed to be legislating and kind of making sure that they obey the rules, and you have the person who is supposed to be obeying those rules help form the rules and actually driving the conversation, saying, "Oh no, that doesn't work for me."
Well, there was for a while there was a policy where they would not allow interplay between lobbyists and industry people, and it's only gotten worse since 2012, where you just have massive amounts of people making legislation that were involved in the tech industry. And it's just, I'm sorry, man, but no, I agree with you. At a certain point,
Tim Wheeler, I think was kind of like the start of that whole cascade. But okay, now all that aside, we have plenty of time. We can get into this next one, and this is more of a feel-good story because hey, the masses have spoken. PlayStation 5 is a success, and a really, really good success.
Yes.
What's up with PlayStation 5 and 10 million? That's a lot, right?
That's a lot. Second most ever sold in the United States per in the time frame. I think behind only the Nintendo Wii. But here's the thing: it doesn't matter how fast you sell without a corresponding number with just software. Mm-hmm. Every month, our good friend Corey and I, we do a podcast called The State of Gaming, which I linked to you. And we talk about this because every single month, it's either the Switch or the PlayStation 5. For the very first time ever, the Xbox Series X made more money than the PlayStation. And I took it not to be as a sign of things to come, but I think it a sign of the PlayStation's success. Because you can look at these numbers, right? I want to be clear. Since coming out in 2017, the Nintendo Switch has sold almost 90 million units, which is absurd. Mm-hmm. Absurd for a Nintendo platform. The PlayStation routinely gets about 80 to 90 million. So the PlayStations have always been successful. But when you look at a console's lifespan, you can't just look at like, oh, it sold 10 million and everything. You have to look at the software charts. You have to look at what's selling. And it is pretty clear, Ben. The writing is on the wall. And I'll just say this right now. I'm sorry, fanboys. This generation of consoles is going to be dominated by Nintendo and Sony. There's no room for Microsoft in this to be an active player in the console market. And I hate saying that because everybody likes the Xbox Series X. But Microsoft, I think, anticipated this. They did this to them. They knew this was going to happen. They've relied more and more on PC World. And I think you see that with Windows 11.
Right.
And I'm sure they're okay with this. I'm sure they're okay with that. But that being said, the PlayStation has just been a staggering success. And this despite console shortages. This is despite can't find one. Like, the joke was, oh, they sold 10 million. They even sold a couple to fans because the scalpers are usually the ones that got it.
Right.
I don't know a single person that has a PlayStation 5 that actually bought it from a store. They bought it secondhand. Every single person. Every single one. And so this is a problem Sony needs to address. They need to find a way, I think the only way to do it is to do direct selling to people because it's not working the way they're doing it. It's really hard for these consoles to get into somebody's hands. It's really hard, and that's not a good thing.
Yep, there's that shortage that is still going on, and at this point, I think what's expected into 2023. So, readily available consoles, because this wouldn't be a problem about scalpers if there was enough products on the store shelves that you didn't have to go to the scalpers. But because there is nothing on the store shelf, you have to go to eBay, you have to go to secondhand, and you get it that way. So, maybe if anything, and Nathan, maybe if anything, it's this weird two-part COVID thing where people are working from home. They're entertaining themselves at home more. Consoles, I'm sure, have been a huge relief to a lot of people who couldn't go out, couldn't socialize, and they needed something to distract themselves. Maybe Absolutely. COVID drove console sales, but at the same time, Nathan, COVID limited console sales because of the limited availability of hardware. I don't know if they would have sold more or less because of
shortages
COVID.
Too. I mean, there's so many things going on here. To be honest with you, I was wrong about this one. I admit when I'm wrong. I didn't think that the PlayStation and the Xbox should launch during the pandemic. I never did, and I still don't. I agree with you. I think had they launched at a different time, I think it would have been a better deal for them. But the dictates of their shareholders said they needed to come out last quarter, and they did. And I think it's been a rousing success for Sony. I don't think it's been a rousing success for the Xbox. Nintendo, of course, Nintendo exists in a different universe, so they're not really competing. And, we talked about, like, is Nintendo going to have a Switch Pro to compete with the PlayStation? I've said since the beginning, I don't think so.
They came out with the Switch since you were last on. The Switch OLED with a little bit better screen. The output is still 720p, and although I think it does output into 4K now, but
no, it doesn't.
1080p. Okay, there we go.
No,
on the console,
no, still 720p.
Like even the output. I thought the output was 1080p. Like when you do the HDMI or whatever.
It's 1080p. Well, the current Switch does that. Like the internals of the Switch Pro are not. I mean, the Switch OLED are no different than the Switch now. It does not output at a higher resolution. It does not do anything. There's no more RAM. It's exactly the same internals. It's just a better screen and a better dock.
I gotcha.
That's the thing. Like, and to be honest with you, that's good, because if they did something else, it would have been disastrous for developers. So, I mean. But with the PlayStation and the Xbox, these are hardware-based things. These are performance-based machines that benefit from this kind of technology. And so, like you saw that Valve is going to release their own version of a portable.
I was about to say, what about the Steam Deck? Because, hey, a new console, it's going to beat them all, right?
No.
The Steam Deck.
It'll be a niche thing. It'll be abandoned quickly. Corey's already got his pre-order, but no, it's not a competing console because, and again, I think it's going to be a fine machine for bootleggers and for modders. But literally, it's one of those things where Valve did this before with the Steam OS box machines, is that they're
Steam
literally
machine,
taking. Here's the thing, and I'm not trying to be a pessimist. Okay, I think this thing's going to be fabulous for people who do like emulators and certain things, but as its stated purpose, it's going to be very limited, and just like the Steam OS is. But let me explain why. Because they're taking the worst parts of what people like about PC gaming, and they're taking the worst parts of what people like about the Switch, and they're melding them together. For example, the Switch is not a powerful machine. It's very outdated. It was outdated the day it came out. Everything about the Switch is already obsolete, but it has an advantage over everything else. It's got Nintendo games. You want to play Zelda? Gotta have a Switch. You want to play Mario?
Yeah, you see down here with in this article from Mars, ARMS, 1-2 Switch, Splatoon, Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart, Super Mario Odyssey. Yeah, it has titles.
Yeah, it has titles, and it has the titles you can only play on Nintendo hardware, and Nintendo people are not the people that care much about technology. They just don't. Whereas the Steam Deck doesn't do any of that. In fact, not only does it not have any of that, it doesn't even release Switch. You can complicatedly dock it to a TV or a monitor, but it's not meant for that. It's meant to be played like a PlayStation Portable, and its technology is very limited. It's not very it's powerful, but it's not very powerful. It's got very limited memory.
They're at least promising 30 FPS, which and 30 should not be the standard anymore nowadays. But 30 FPS on most of the Steam library, which is something that I think Steam does have going for it. Where if people can just play their Steam library, because I know people have hundreds of games that they already own, that's a big selling point. Though.
Yeah, good luck putting it on a 64 gig hard drive. When you have individual games that are 70 gigs, again, this is a problem, is that when you have, like, you look at the Switch is actually less powerful than you think it is. I mean, it's more powerful because it's based on a Tegra chip that was an NVIDIA Shield. The Nintendo version downclocks it. And the reason they do that is for hardware consistency through software. Games can run faster on the Switch. If you overclock the Switch, it could run better, but it becomes unstable and overheats. The Steam Valve Deck, whatever they're calling it, doesn't have this. It's going to be limited to software. So that thing will run hotter and faster. The battery life will be inconsistent. And so, like I said, Valve doesn't have a very good track record with this. That being said, and I know this sounds pessimistic, but it's really not. I look at the Steam Valve Deck and I'm like, I have a neck problem where I've had to medicate my neck and I've had to lay down. And the Switch has been great because I've been able to play some old games laying down, right? But there have been times I want to use my PC, like to play my PC games, and I have to sit up. I was like, wouldn't it be great if I could play my PC games lying down? Like, I get it. I totally get the idea of it. Right. But like, I don't know what that's going to mean, because again, people who play PC games want power. Like, that's literally why you have a PC. Like, literally, like 90% of why you're a hardcore PC gamer is because you want the best performance. Now, that being said, there's been this new revolution of smaller independent games that that frankly
I gotta say,
look like
one of my
Switch games.
favorite games, one of my favorite new games that I've picked up lately in like the past month has been Rimworld, and Rimworld is a download of like 700 megabytes. Like, it is not a big game, but it's
no. That's
fun
what I'm
as heck.
saying though. That is happening, right? In fact, if you look at releases of new games, there's been a huge uptick in the number of games that are released only on Switch and PC.
Right.
Because, like for example, Final Fantasy Pixel Collection just came out on Switch and PC. Like, this is happening more and more and more because there are more casual people. But again, I don't know how that's going to translate into a portable unit that costs $600 to get the most out of it. And so this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, and I would even say that the lowest level of Steam Deck that they have available just is not powerful enough. Like, I don't even know why they're releasing a piece of hardware that is so underpowered that it can barely run anything, but the other two that cost like $100 or $200 more, that looks more appealing, and it does have expandable storage with micro SD cards. It does have networking capabilities.
I don't know if the storage is going to be as expandable as people think it is. It's like this is a problem again, because you can get away with running a game on an SD card on the Switch when its assets and everything are small. Have you ever tried playing a high quality PC game on an SD card? It's not good.
I would imagine that the throughput of the card is very, very limited. So
yeah,
but I will say about this, and Nathan, music is starting right there, so we're going to start wrapping this up. You discussed that, I'm sure, with people much more knowledgeable than myself over on your podcast. And the State of Games, July 2021. I'm sorry, the State of Gaming.
Get it right.
I'm assuming that was fun.
Yeah, you'll like it.
Perfect. So everyone, popzara.com. Check it out there. Everything from pig to podcast and everything in between. It's all there. And Nathan, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's always fun talking with you. I can't think of a better way to wrap up the month. And looking forward to talking to you next month.
Okay, well, stay safe, everybody. Don't get overheated.
Absolutely. Everyone, stay safe, and we will be back with more Computer America next Monday. Everyone, have a great weekend. Do your thing, and hey, be sure to catch us back here, same time, same place. Everyone, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.